Whether the issue is illegal immigration or foreign policy or just plain politics, John McCAIN remains one of the most visible members of Congress, a fixture on television, sometimes at odds with his own party and with the press. So today we're turning the tables and giving him a chance to critique the mainstream media. I sat down with the Republican senator here in the Washington Bureau. John McCAIN, welcome.
Thank you, Howard.
Let's start with immigration. The media have cast you as an immigration reformer. You supported the Senate compromise that passed last year. You campaigned in 2008 on immigration reform, and yet you've been highly critical of President Obama over these 60,000 illegal immigrant kids who've come across our border. Any inconsistency there?
Well, I think you could argue that from one respect, but on the other respect, you can view this, one reason why I'm so critical, as such a polarizing event that it hurts our ability, in fact, some observers say it's dead, ability to sell comprehensive immigration reform, because now the opponents are saying, see, you have broken borders, and we have to secure our borders first, which, by the way, I agree with.
Has the press created a lot of sympathy for these children who, after all, are in difficult situations, made a dangerous journey, and has that muddied the waters of the immigration debate?
My problem with the press coverage is not that they're sympathetic to these young children. We are all sympathetic. But what I believe, where I'm critical of the press, and legitimately critical, is their emphasis or lack of emphasis on what happens to these children on the way up. The train of death, the rapes, the total abuse of children. So many on the left and in the media are saying, gee, it's so terrible that they are in the conditions on which they're now, once they get here. Well, it's a total abuse of human rights on the way here.
A lot of people, as you know, say the press has always been very sympathetic to Barack Obama. You ran against him 6 years ago, but has that been as true in the second term, where there have been all these scandals and controversies?
I think that the press, in some ways, would have been harder on George W. Bush when you look around the world and see the turmoil in the world today. Literally every place you look is in some kind of turmoil. And so I think the media, in many respects, particularly when I read some of the, quote, commentators' columns, they continue to apologize and justify what is clearly a failed national security policy on this administration. Is
that true with the current chaos in Iraq? Now, you, in fairness, were very critical of the war under George W. Bush and Donald Rumsfeld, but you also say that the U.S. had the war won after the Bush surge. But a lot of people in the media, and Dick Cheney has gotten some of this, say, well, those of you who supported the invasion in 2003 are discredited because you never apologized for your misjudgment.
The reason why I think some of us don't apologize for our misjudgment is because the Secretary of State, one of the most respected individuals in the world, went before the United Nations Security Council,
Colin Powell,
and made a compelling argument that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
Which turned out to be wrong.
Yeah, which turned out to be wrong, but faced with the same scenario again, the most highly respected man in America, literally, making that case, I would have made the same judgment and cast the same vote. But also the fact is, we did have it won. Also, what I find totally lacking in the media is they accept this idea that it was all the Iraqis' fault that we didn't leave a residual force behind.
Jon Stewart took a sarcastic shot at you.
Since John McCAIN was one of the wrongest before and during the war, it's only fitting that in this current crisis, he was on so many shows, you'd think he just won Dancing with the Stars.
You've been on The Daily Show. Is Jon Stewart fair to Republicans?
No, but he you know, it doesn't matter really. He's a comedian, and
he's also a social critic who has a sizable following among young people.
Oh yeah, listen, he's a very entertaining and funny guy. But you know, when he says things which he's entitled to, after all, he's a late night comic, that are absolutely wrong, and he gets away with it, and that's, you know, it is what it is. I frankly have no beef with late night comedians who make fun of politicians. That's the nature.
You're a big target.
Of the business.
You and your colleagues.
I do resent when respected commentators, who are columnists particularly, say things that absolutely are contradicted by the facts. Like, oh well, we wanted to leave a force behind in Iraq, but the Iraqis wouldn't take it. That's just wrong.
When you ran for president in 2000, and I spent a lot of hours on the bus with you, you spent hours and hours and hours talking to reporters, and you were kind of a media darling. When you ran in 2008, you had a more contentious relationship with the press, and eventually you didn't offer that kind of access. What changed?
Everybody has their own version of events, but unfortunately, at least in my view and those people around me, it became a rather adversarial relationship, and it's very unfortunate.
More of a gotcha relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of a classic example was I was being interviewed, and the guy said, "How many houses do you own?" And I don't own any houses. That's not mine. But
you're saying it's your wife's.
Yeah. But the point is, it was not a. Many of the comments that I made in the context of a long conversation, if you took a sentence out, you could have it be critical. Well, that was happening to us more and more. And frankly, one of the real disappointments to me, and I'll take the blame for it, is the deterioration of a relationship that wasn't that we were so much friends, but that we had kind of a open relationship, and the more time I was able to spend with the media, the more I was able to make them understand exactly where I was coming from. Well, we lost that during the 2008 campaign.
During the Bush years, you were so frequently described as a maverick. I think it was kind of attached to your name on the computer. But then after President Obama won, you were a grumpy old man, you were a sore loser. What did you make of that tonal shift? I found it fascinating, because when I came out and said that Donald Rumsfeld has to resign, that Iraq war is failing, he's a grumpy old man. When I say that the president has to replace his national security team, excuse me, when I said Donald Rumsfeld has to be, here's the brave maverick standing up against his own party. When I say that the national security team is not serving this president well, he's the grumpy old man. In an age when everybody is on Twitter 10 seconds later saying McCain said this, or taking shots at you.
But at the same time, you've got to have the maturity to recognize that that's the nature of the business we were in. I will freely admit to you that years ago I used to get a lot more angry than I do today. I'm still not happy when I see myself.
John McCain admitting that he got angry. Here's a headline. But you're suggesting that you've mellowed a bit in that regard? I
think so, but I haven't lost my fire, I hope. But at the same time, I've tried harder and harder to understand that these things are going to happen. But am I completely immune to being unhappy about it? Hell no.